At 09:14 on July 4, 2026, the largest alien fleet ever detected entered Earth's atmosphere, shut down 37 military satellites, and announced that humanity had 12 minutes to surrender. In the little town of Bellwether, however, nobody heard the announcement because the public address system was still playing the wrong part of the birthday schedule, and 3,842 people were already sitting down for lunch. Nobody in orbit understood why one American town had not evacuated. That was the first mistake. If you enjoy HFY stories where humanity wins in the most unexpected way, please like the video, subscribe, and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. And tell me in the comments, if aliens landed during your town's biggest celebration, would you run, fight, or offer them a seat? Now back to Bellwether, where the aliens were about to discover that the hardest human system to conquer was not the military. The invasion belonged to the Vaer Dominion, a civilization that had conquered 184 worlds across 611 years. Their commander, High Marshal Orvek Thal, had personally overseen 19 planetary campaigns, all successful. He had never surrendered a target, never abandoned a landing force, and never encountered a species that continued holding a public festival after receiving a surrender demand. His doctrine was simple enough to fit on the first page of every Dominion field manual. A civilization that can be frightened can be controlled. His bridge carried 14,000 officers and crew, and every one of them had been trained to interpret resistance through that sentence. When a planet resisted, they increased pressure. When governments negotiated, they isolated leadership. When civilians panicked, they used the panic as evidence that the conquest was working. There was no category in the doctrine for people who were frightened, confused, stubborn, and still more concerned about whether their potato salad had been refrigerated. That category did not exist yet. Standing 3 steps behind Orvek was Lieutenant Saren Vale, the youngest intelligence officer aboard the command carrier. He was 31 years old, had read every full intelligence report instead of only the summaries, and had already identified 27 anomalies in the human response. The most important one was Bellwether. Its population had not dispersed. Its emergency shelters were empty. Its communications traffic contained almost no military language. Instead, the town kept transmitting phrases such as "bring folding chairs," "keep the fireworks dry," and "the veterans' table needs 6 more places." Saren had highlighted the transmissions in yellow. Nobody had asked him why. "Report the anomaly," Orvek said. "Bellwether has not evacuated." "Why?" "Unknown. Military forces. None detected within 8 kilometers. Government command. None. Then they are irrelevant." Saren looked down at his tablet. "High Marshal, there is another issue." Orvek waited. "The town has reserved 1 additional seat at every major meal." Orvek stared at him for 2 seconds. "For whom?" "We do not know." "Then stop wasting command time on furniture." Saren lowered his tablet. "Yes, High Marshal." He did not delete the anomaly. At 08:47 that morning, 3 hours before the fleet entered the atmosphere, Mara Venn was standing behind the Bellwether Community Center with a roll of blue painter's tape in one hand and a paper cup of coffee in the other. She had been organizing public events for 27 years, which meant she could identify a dangerous extension cord from 20 feet away and could tell from the sound of a generator whether it had 3 minutes or 30 minutes left before somebody needed to turn it off. Neither skill had ever appeared on a military resume. Both were about to become important. Myra was 56, wore an old yellow volunteer vest, and had the permanent expression of someone who had already solved 6 problems before breakfast. She walked between rows of folding tables, pressing strips of tape onto the pavement. Blue for food, white for emergency, red for electrical. Her assistant, Tommy Rusk, carried a clipboard and followed 6 steps behind. "What's green?" Myra took a sip of coffee. "People who don't know what they're doing." Tommy looked at the parking lot. "That's most of the town." "Exactly." At the center of the lawn stood a small wooden platform decorated with 250 paper stars. Behind it were 1,200 folding chairs, though Mara had originally ordered 1,300. The missing 100 had been borrowed by a church for a wedding 3 weeks earlier and returned with 7 broken legs. Mara had not replaced them because she knew exactly how many people would actually sit down during the afternoon ceremony. She also knew the river. Bellwether had been built beside the slow bend of the Weller River, where the water moved east for almost 4 miles before turning south through a narrow channel. The river flooded only aft. Sustained rain, but the low western field beside the community center became soft enough for heavy vehicles to sink after roughly 20 minutes of concentrated pressure. The town had lived with that fact for generations. Mara knew another thing. The old rail embankment on the north side of town was 43 inches higher than the surrounding streets. It had not carried a train since 1968, but people still used it as a dry route during floods. She had included both facts in the event emergency plan because that was what she did. There were also the fireworks. Bellwether's fireworks were launched from a gravel lot nearly 2 miles south of the center, beyond the river bend. The launch team used a simple electrical control box, 3 independent circuits, and a hand-operated cutoff switch. The system was old, reliable, and deliberately separated from the main town power grid. Myra had personally checked it at 06:20. Finally, there was the parade route. It was exactly 2.8 miles long. Myra had spent 14 years adjusting that route because floats, emergency vehicles, marching bands, and elderly veterans did not turn corners at the same speed. The route crossed 3 streets, passed under an old water tower, followed the river for 0.7 miles, and ended beside the community center. Every turn had a reason. Every pause had a reason. Even the stupid parts had a reason. And one more thing sat on Myra's clipboard. A seating chart. At table 17, there were supposed to be 12 chairs. She had placed 13. Tommy pointed at it. "Who's number 13? Myra did not look up. "Guest." "Which guest?" "The kind you don't plan around." Tommy frowned. "That's not very specific." "That's why it's a guest." At 09:02, the first Dominion landing craft descended over Bellwether. It did not land. The craft stopped at 412 meters above the town, scanned the streets, and transmitted a surrender order in 31 languages. Every television, phone, radio, and emergency speaker in range should have carried the message. Instead, the Bellwether Community Center system played a recorded announcement saying that children under 12 should not touch the fireworks equipment. Myra heard the message. She looked at Tommy. "That's supposed to be at 11. Tommy checked the schedule. "You're right. Fix it." "I'm trying." Above them, the alien landing craft remained motionless. Inside it, 48 Dominion soldiers waited for orders. "Human communications are active," said the craft's pilot. "Resistance." "Negative." "Evacuation." "Negative." "Then why are they broadcasting?" The pilot replayed the transmission. "Something about fireworks." The commander of the landing force looked at the screen. "What is a firework?" Nobody answered immediately. Saren Vale, listening from the command carrier, quietly opened another report. "Hi, Marshal." Orvek did not turn. "What?" "The human broadcast mentions explosives." "Then they have weapons." "Possibly." "Deploy scanners." The scanners activated. They detected 4,600 kilograms of pyrotechnic material stored in 7 locations. Orvek's hand stopped above the command console. "Confirm." "Confirmed." "Weapon stockpile." Saren hesitated. "Technically, no." "Explain." "It appears to be recreational." Orvek stared at him. "Explosives are recreational." "Apparently." The bridge became silent. Orvek finally said, "Classify the materials as non-military." Saren entered the order. Then he added a private note. The Dominion had just encountered its first human contradiction. At 09:18, Myra was informed that an unidentified object was hovering over the baseball field. She walked outside. Tommy followed. A silver-black alien craft hung above the grass like a building that had forgotten to come down. 3,842 people were still eating lunch. Nobody screamed. Nobody ran. A man at table 8 raised his phone. "Is that part of the show?" Myra squinted upward. No. Should we leave? Myra checked her watch. We've got barbecue until 1. The man nodded. Okay. The craft descended to 90 meters. Its doors opened. 6 Dominion soldiers stepped onto the grass wearing armored suits designed to withstand vacuum exposure, radiation, and small-caliber planetary weapons. A bellwether parking officer approached them. Her name was Della Pike. She was 63 years old. She had worked municipal parking for 18 years. She held a yellow vest and a stack of paper forms. You're blocking the emergency lane. The alien commander looked at her. Human? Yes. You will evacuate this area immediately. Della looked at the craft, then at the 6 soldiers, then at her clipboard. Do you have a permit? The commander paused. For what? Landing. This is a military occupation. That's not a permit. Behind Della, Tommy whispered to Myra. Is she really doing this? Myra nodded. She's been doing it since 2008. The alien commander took 1 step forward. We represent the Vayer Dominion. Great. We have conquered D-184 worlds. Congratulations. You will comply. Della held out a form. Application fee is $25. The commander stared at the paper. Saren Vale watched the exchange through the landing craft's camera. His fingers tightened around his tablet. Hi, Marshal. Orvek answered from orbit. Report. The humans are not responding to the threat. Then escalate. Sir, I don't think they're ignoring us. What are they doing? Saren watched Della point at a yellow line painted on the grass. They're processing us. Orvek's expression did not change. Proceed with occupation. That was the second mistake. The Dominion deployed 4 more craft. They landed at the North Road, the river field, the parade staging area, and the community center parking lot. Every landing zone had been selected by satellite intelligence. Everyone was wrong. The North Road was part of the parade route and already closed. The river field was too soft for the craft's landing struts. The staging area was occupied by emergency vehicles. And the community center parking lot was reserved for food vendors. The first craft tried to land beside the river. Its 4 landing legs sank 14 inches into the soil. The pilot applied reverse thrust. Mud sprayed across the craft. A Dominion officer shouted, "Stabilize." The pilot answered, "Ground density is inconsistent." Compensate. I am compensating. The craft tilted 9 degrees. Inside the command carrier, Saren watched the telemetry. That field was marked stable. By orbital scan. Yes. Then the scan was wrong. Saren looked at the map. The town's emergency plan identifies that area as flood-prone. Orvek turned. Why was this not in the military summary? Saren answered carefully. It was in the municipal infrastructure appendix. Orvek's eyes narrowed. You read that? Yes. Why? Because it was 312 pages. Orvek looked away. The craft finally lifted free. It left behind 4 deep holes. Myra saw them from the road. She sighed. That's going to be a problem. Tommy asked the aliens. No, the holes. The first alien failure had cost them 11 minutes. The second cost them credibility. The third was waiting at the parade. At 09:41, the Dominion announced that all human movement within Bellwether was prohibited. Mara heard the announcement while standing beside a float shaped like a giant birthday cake. She turned to the driver. Did you hear that? Yeah. Keep moving. The driver nodded. The parade began at 09:45. Exactly on schedule. A marching band of 74 teenagers turned onto Main Street. Behind them came 18 classic cars, 3 tractors, 6 decorated pickup trucks, 2 fire engines, 1 ambulance, and a float carrying a papier-mâché bald eagle that was 16 feet tall. From orbit, Dominion scanners detected the movement. Orvec received the report. Human forces are mobilizing. Saren read the data. Those are civilians. They are moving in formation. It's a parade. Define parade. A ceremonial procession. Then why are they continuing under occupation? Saren watched the formation. I don't know. Orvec pointed at the screen. Identify command structure. Saren tried. The band had a conductor. The classic cars had a volunteer marshal. The tractors followed a teenager on a bicycle. The fire engines were following municipal safety instructions. The Eagle float was being pulled by a retired plumber named Wheeze. There was no central military command. Orvec leaned forward. Then they are disorganized. Saren shook his head. No, High Marshal. What? They are coordinated. Without command. Apparently. The Dominion deployed a suppression field across Main Street. The field was designed to stop vehicles. It worked. The parade stopped. For 3 seconds. Then Mara walked to the nearest fire engine and spoke to the driver. Use the alternate route. The driver nodded. The band turned left. The cars followed. The tractors followed the cars. The fire engines followed the tractors. The ambulance moved behind them. Within 90 seconds, the entire parade was moving again on a route the Dominion had not mapped because it existed only in Mara's printed emergency plan. Saren stared at the screen. Where did that route come from? Orvec said nothing. Saren zoomed in. It ran along the old rail embankment. The same embankment that sat 43 inches above the surrounding streets. The same dry route used during floods. The same route Mara had included because emergency vehicles sometimes needed it. The Dominion suppression field remained behind them. The parade disappeared beyond it. Mistake count 3. At 10:06, the Dominion tried something more sophisticated. They targeted human leadership. Their intelligence system identified 1,147 people who had issued instructions during the previous hour. From those, it selected the 23 most influential. The system was wrong. Most of them were volunteers. 3 were children's coaches. 1 was a church pianist. 1 was the owner of a hardware store. And 1 was Mara Venn. The Dominion assumed Mara was the town's operational commander because she appeared in 38% of the municipal communication logs. A landing craft approached her position. Mara was behind the stage, checking the microphone. The alien commander stepped down. Human coordinator. Mara looked at him. That's me. You will surrender control. Of what? Your forces. Mara glanced toward the parade. They aren't mine. Your command network. Don't have one. Your logistical command. That's mostly Tommy. Tommy raised a hand. Please don't involve me. The commander stepped closer. You direct civilian movement. I organize events. You control transportation. Sometimes, you control food distribution. Only until 2. You control communications. Not really. The alien commander stared at her. Mara checked her watch. Do you need something? The commander finally said, You are responsible for this gathering. Mara nodded. Yes. Then order them to disperse. Mara looked toward the 16-foot eagle. Then toward the marching band. Then toward the crowd. No. The commander raised his weapon. The crowd fell silent. Mara did not move. The weapon emitted a low electrical hum. That is not a request. Mara took another sip of coffee. I figured. The commander waited. Mara pointed at the weapon. Don't discharge that near the generator. The commander lowered it slightly. Why? It'll trip the circuit. That is irrelevant. No, it's not. Mara walked past him. The commander turned. Where are you going? To move the generator. She disappeared behind the stage. The commander remained standing. For the first time in 611 years of Dominion conquest, a military officer had been warned about an electrical circuit by an unarmed civilian while holding a weapon capable of destroying a building. Saren watched. He said quietly, "She is not afraid." Orvek answered immediately. "Fear is irrelevant." Saren looked at the screen. Then why did she protect the generator? Orvek had no answer. At 10:19, the generator stopped. Not because of the alien weapon. Because Tommy had unplugged the wrong cable. The stage microphone died. 3,842 people groaned. Myra turned around. Tommy. Yeah. What did you unplug? The big black thing. That's the generator feed. Oh. Myra closed her eyes. The alien commander watched the exchange. Your civilization is under occupation. Myra opened her eyes. Yes. And your concern is the microphone. Right now, yes. Why? Myra looked at him. Because people can't hear the announcements. The commander almost laughed. He did not. Instead, he raised his wrist communicator. Begin psychological suppression. The Dominion activated a planetary broadcast. Every screen in Bellwether went black. Then Orvek's face appeared. His voice filled the town. Humanity, your defenses are irrelevant. Your leaders are isolated. Your cities are under surveillance. Your military capabilities are outmatched. Resistance is irrational. The crowd listened. Mara stood near the stage. The broadcast continued. You have 10 minutes to acknowledge Dominion authority. The screen went silent. A child in the front row raised his hand. Myra looked at him. Yes. Are we still having fireworks? Myra checked her schedule. Yes. The child smiled. The crowd began talking again. Saren watched the neural response data. Fear had increased. Panic had not. He whispered, they are scared. Orvek nodded. Good. They are also continuing. Orvek's hand stopped. Saren brought up the crowd data. That is the problem. At 10:37, the Dominion made its first serious mistake. They shut down Bellwether's electricity. The town went dark. Refrigerators stopped. Traffic lights went black. The stage went silent. For 11 seconds, nobody moved. Then Mara shouted, emergency procedure. 37 people moved. The fire department activated portable generators. The hospital switched to backup power. The food vendors opened coolers. The parade marshals redirected traffic. The fireworks crew isolated its own electrical system. And Della Pike began writing tickets for vehicles blocking the emergency lane. The Dominion scanners detected a coordinated response. Orvek watched. Military. Saren answered. No. Police. Some. Government. Some. Then what is coordinating them? Saren zoomed in. A list of instructions appeared. Most were printed. Some were handwritten. One had a coffee stain. Prepared procedures. Orvek leaned back. Before the invasion. Yes. How long? Saren searched the metadata. Some were written 20 years ago. Orvek stared at the screen. The humans had not improvised. They had prepared for disasters without knowing what disaster would come. That changed the equation. The Dominion could overpower their current systems. But it could not easily remove knowledge that already existed in thousands of ordinary people. Saren opened a private channel. Hi, Marshal. What? Recommend withdrawal from civilian centers. Orvek looked at him. Reason. The human response is decentralized. We have defeated decentralized civilizations. Not this kind. Orvek waited. Saren continued. They do not require permission to solve local problems. Orvek's expression hardened. That is not a military capability. Saren answered softly. It may be worse. Orvek dismissed the channel. Continue the operation. Mistake count 5. At 11:02, the Dominion captured the town hall. The building contained 17 municipal employees. The alien soldiers entered through the front doors. The town clerk looked up. Can I help you? We have seized this facility. Okay. The clerk waited. The alien commander said, You will provide all administrative records. Which ones? All. Paper or digital? Both. Do you have a records request? The commander looked at his officer. The officer looked back. No. Then I can't release them. We have conquered your government. You're going to need a request. The commander stepped closer. Do you understand what I am saying? Perfectly. Then comply. I need a form. The commander slammed his hand against the desk. The clerk did not flinch. What form? Any form. The clerk reached under the desk. She produced a 3-page document. Property access authorization. The commander took it. Sign here. He stared at the paper. What is this? Your permission to enter the building. We are already inside. Then you don't need permission anymore. The commander slowly lowered the paper. Saren, listening remotely, closed his eyes for 2 seconds. He understood. The humans were not defying the Dominion. They were continuing their normal systems in the presence of the Dominion. That was different. At 11:24, Orvek ordered a direct strike on the community center. The target was selected because it contained the highest concentration of civilians. Saren immediately objected. High Marshal, the building contains no military assets. That is irrelevant. Then why strike it? To demonstrate control. Saren looked at the crowd analysis. There are 3,842 civilians. Yes. Children, 611. Orvek said nothing. Medical personnel, 14. Silence. Emergency vehicles, 9. Orvek's eyes remained fixed ahead. Saren continued. The building also contains the town's emergency shelter. Orvek turned. Confirm. Confirmed. The order remained on the screen. Strike authorization. 3 seconds. 5. 10. Saren looked at Orvek. High Marshal. Orvek finally spoke. Cancel the strike. Saren blinked. Sir. Cancel it. The order disappeared. Orvek gave no explanation. But he had made a choice. He would not turn a demonstration into a massacre. That choice would later become the reason Bellwether survived with 0 civilian casualties. At 11:31, Mara received a message. The alien commander wanted to speak with her. She walked to the edge of the community center. Orvek's field commander waited there. Your leader wishes to negotiate. Mara looked upward. Where is he? In orbit. Then he's not negotiating. He wishes to understand your refusal. Mara shrugged. We're having a birthday. You continue celebrations under threat of occupation. Yes. Why? Mara looked at the 250 paper stars hanging over the stage. Because somebody already paid for the food. The alien commander stared at her. Mara smiled slightly. Also, we've been doing this a long time. Your celebration has no military value. Didn't say it did. Then why defend it? Mara looked at him. Because it's ours. The commander transmitted the exchange. Saren heard every word. Orvek heard it too. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Orvek asked, "What does she mean by ours?" Saren answered, "I think she means they do not need a strategic reason." Orvek looked down at Earth. "That is irrational." Saren's reply was almost too quiet to hear. "Perhaps." At 11:47, the fireworks crew made its first mistake. A cable failed. The launch system lost circuit too. Mara received the call. "How long? 20 minutes. We don't have 20. We need 15. Do 12. That's not how electricity works. Then make it work for 13. The fireworks technician, Ben Helder, laughed. "You're impossible." Mara answered, "That's why you keep me." Above them, Dominion scanners detected a concentrated energy signature. The alien analysts panicked. Weapon activation. Orvek demanded a report. Energy concentration increasing. Target. Sky. Yield. Unknown. Saren looked at the telemetry. He recognized the timing. "Hi, Marshal." "Yes. I believe those are the fireworks." Orvek looked at him. "Again." "Yes." The first firework launched at 12:03. A white explosion appeared above Bellwether. Then another. Then 40. Then 100. The sky filled with color. The Dominion fleet went to defensive alert. Thousands of weapon systems automatically. Armed. Human civilians cheered. Alien crews stared. Saren watched the readings. The explosions were harmless. But something else was happening. The fireworks illuminated the low clouds. Those clouds reflected the Dominion ships. For the first time, every person in Bellwether could see the scale of the fleet above them. The crowd became silent. Then somebody started clapping. Others joined. Not because the fleet was beautiful. Because they could see it. The threat had become visible. And once visible, it became something humans could look at together. Mara stood beneath the fireworks. Tommy came beside her. "Pretty impressive. Needs more red. It's already 12 minutes late." "That's why." The crowd laughed. Above them, Orvek watched the human response. They were not cheering the invasion. They were cheering the fact that their celebration was still happening. Saren said, "Hi, Marshal." Orvek did not answer. "Do you understand now?" Orvek looked down. "No." Saren waited. Orvek continued. "But I understand that our doctrine does not." At 12:19, the Dominion attempted its final psychological operation. They offered Bellwether safety. No arrests. No destruction. No occupation of private homes. Food supplies guaranteed. Local administration preserved. All the town had to do was acknowledge Dominion authority. Mara read the message. Tommy stood beside her. "That's not terrible." Mara nodded. "No. Are we accepting?" Mara looked toward the alien craft. "No." "Why?" "Because they're asking us to say we're theirs." Tommy frowned. "Could we just lie?" Mara considered it. "No." "Why not?" She looked at the crowd. "Because then they win the part that matters." Tommy nodded slowly. The response was sent. "No." Orvek received it. He read the single word. Then he looked at Saren. "Why?" Saren answered, "Because they can survive without us." Orvek looked back at Earth. "That is not the same as defeating us." "No." "Then why do I feel defeated?" Saren did not answer. Orvek placed one hand on the command console. He removed his helmet. The bridge became silent. No Dominion commander had removed a command helmet during an active planetary operation in 143 years. Orvek said, "Open a civilian channel." Saren looked at him. To whom? Bellwethers. At 12:26, Mara's radio crackled. A voice spoke. This is High Marshal Orvek Thal of the Vayer Dominion. Mara pressed the transmit button. This is Mara Ven. I have reviewed your town's response. Okay. You have no military victory. I know. Our forces remain superior. I know. We could destroy this location. Mara looked around. 3,842 people were eating, talking, watching fireworks, and waiting for cake. She answered, You could. Orvik paused. Mara continued, But you haven't. Silence. Then Orvik asked, Why do you believe we have not? Mara looked toward the sky. Because she finally understood what was happening. Because you don't want to become the thing you came here to defeat. The radio remained silent for 6 seconds. Orvek's hand moved. He slowly removed the strike authorization from his console. Then he shut down the weapons display. Saren watched the action. High Marshal. Orvek spoke without looking at him. Withdraw the ground units. The junior officer blinked. All of them. All. That will be interpreted as defeat. Orvek looked down at Earth. No. He paused. It will be interpreted as judgment. At 12:31, Dominion landing craft began leaving Bellwether. The soldiers did not run. They marched. The pilots did not flee. They lifted cleanly from the streets. Della Pike watched one craft rise from the community center parking lot. She raised her clipboard. Wait. The craft stopped. Della held up a form. Parking fee. The alien pilot transmitted. What? You're leaving early. There was a long pause. The pilot asked how much. Della checked the sheet. $15. The pilot paid. Mara watched from 50 feet away. Tommy whispered, Did we just charge aliens for parking? Mara nodded. Municipal revenue. Are we keeping the money? Of course. That's incredible. No. Mara looked at the sky. That's normal. At 12:42, the final Dominion soldier left Bellwether. No humans had been killed. No Dominion soldiers had been killed. 9 vehicles had been damaged. 1 community center generator had failed. 3 landing craft had mud in their lower vents. The town's public address system had played the wrong announcement for 47 minutes. And the fireworks had ended exactly 17 minutes late. Those were the casualties of the battle. 0 dead on both sides. That mattered more than who had technically won. Orvek returned to orbit. The fleet waited for his command. He could have ordered another attack. His ship still had overwhelming superiority. Bellwether remained exposed. Earth remained vulnerable. But the doctrine that had carried him through 19 successful campaigns had encountered something at Cowell. D not classify. Not superior firepower. Not superior technology. A civilization that refused to reorganize itself around fear. Orvek looked at Earth for a long time. Then he said, Withdraw. Saren entered the order. The fleet turned. At 13:05, 611 Dominion ships began leaving Earth's orbital zone. Human tracking systems watched them go. Nobody fired. Nobody chased them. Mara was still cleaning up the community center. Tommy approached. Shouldn't we be celebrating? We are. We're folding chairs. That's how we celebrate. He picked up a chair. Where does this one go? Table 17. Tommy stopped. That's the guest table. Mara looked at him. Yes. But nobody came. Mara picked up another chair. Not today. She carried it across the room. Maybe next time. At 13:22, Ben Halder inspected the fireworks equipment. He found one cable burned through. He replaced it with a spare. Then he wrote a note on the control box. "Do not trust Circuit 2. He had no idea the note would still be there 18 years later. Della Pike counted the parking receipts. The alien craft had paid $15. She put the money in the municipal envelope. "Where do I record alien visitors?" The clerk looked at her. "Under special events." Della nodded. "Thought so." Tommy took down the blue tape. He left the white emergency markings. Myra noticed. "Why'd you leave those?" Tommy looked at the empty street. "Feels useful." Myra nodded. "It is." At 14:07, the town's volunteer coordinator, Janice Cole, returned the borrowed folding tables. One had a broken wheel, so she labeled it "Do Not Move" and put it against the wall. At 14:19, the parade marshal, Wes Arlen, found the 16-foot Eagle float still sitting beside the old rail embankment. He decided it was too expensive to move until Monday. At 14:31, Della finished her report and wrote that the unidentified military visitors had departed without further incident. At 14:48, Tommy discovered that the guest chair at table 17 was still there. He asked Mara whether he should put it away. She shook her head. "Leave it." "Why?" Mara looked at the chair. "Because we saved it. For the aliens." She smiled. "For whoever shows up next." That sentence would eventually become part of Bellwether's local tradition. At 16:02, the story had spread beyond the town. At 17:11, the rest of the planet knew that an alien fleet had invaded Earth and left without firing a shot. At 19:43, historians began collecting recordings. At 21:06, analysts identified Bellwether as the location where the Dominion's ground campaign had effectively failed. At 22:18, military experts argued over why. Some said the river. Some said the emergency procedures. Some said the decentralized communications. Some said the parade route. One analyst claimed the fireworks had been a tactical deception. Mara watched that interview on television while eating leftover potato salad. Tommy sat beside her. "They think the fireworks were planned." Myra shook her head. "They were 12 minutes late." Tommy laughed. The next morning, the Dominion's official records office opened an investigation. The report was 4,612 pages long. The first section reviewed the fleet's arrival. The second reviewed Earth's military capability. The third reviewed Bellwether. The fourth was titled Human-Civilian Behavioral Irregularities. The fifth was titled Administrative Obstacles. The sixth contained photographs of Della Pike's parking permit. The seventh contained a transcript of Mara Venn explaining electrical circuits to an armed alien commander. The final recommendation was issued 6 months later. The Dominion Strategic Doctrine Manual received a new amendment. It contained 143 words. The amendment stated that civilizations should not be classified solely by their capacity for fear, military organization, or technological superiority. It further required commanders to consider decentralized civilian procedures, cultural continuity, local expertise, emergency preparedness, administrative resistance, and non-military traditions as potential strategic factors. At the bottom of the page, an additional sentence was added. A civilization may possess no unified command structure and nevertheless remain extremely difficult to command. Saren Vale had written that sentence. Orvek had approved it. Neither mentioned Bellwether by name. But everyone knew. 5 years later, the Dominion returned. Not with an invasion fleet. With an embassy ship. It carried 43 diplomats, 18 security officers, 6 translators, and 1 very nervous parking liaison. Bellwether received the delegation during the town's 255th birthday celebration. Myra was still organizing events. She was 61. Her coffee was still terrible. Her blue tape was still blue. Her emergency markings were still white. And table 17 still had 13 chairs. The Dominion ambassador approached Mara. Coordinator Ven. Mara looked up. Yes. We have returned. Okay. We seek peace. Full diplomatic relations. Good. The ambassador looked at the table. There was an empty chair. He pointed at it. Is that for us? Mara nodded. Yes. He hesitated. May we sit? Mara smiled. That's what it's there for. The ambassador sat. For the first time, the Vaer Dominion entered a human town without weapons. Nobody surrendered. Nobody conquered anyone. Nobody needed to. The ambassador looked at the food. What is this? Tommy answered. Potato salad. The ambassador studied it. Is it safe? Mara sat down beside him. Usually. He looked alarmed. Mara laughed. Relax. The ambassador cautiously took a bite. He looked at her. It is acceptable. Mara nodded. High praise. Above Bellwether, fireworks began at 21:00. This time, the schedule was correct. The ambassador looked into the sky. Your species celebrates the anniversary of independence with explosives. Mara nodded. Pretty much. Why? She thought for a moment. Then she gave the same answer she had given dozens of times. Because it's ours. The ambassador looked at the fireworks. Then at the empty chairs. Then at the people sitting around him. He finally understood what Orvek had learned years earlier. Humanity did not always resist because it believed it could win. Sometimes humanity resisted because it had already decided what it wanted to keep. At 22:14, Mara returned to the community center. The tables had been cleared. The chairs were stacked. The generators were shut down. The fireworks control box was locked. The river beyond the western field was quiet. The old rail embankment stood dark against the sky. Everything was back where it belonged. Mara walked behind the building with a roll of blue painter's tape in one hand and a paper cup of coffee in the other. It was 08:47 again. The next morning, she stopped beside the pavement. Tommy followed her with the clipboard. Mara pressed down a strip of tape. Blue for food, white for emergency, red for electrical. Tommy looked at the green tape. What was green again? Mara took a sip of coffee. People who don't know what they're doing. Tommy laughed. That's most of the town. Mara nodded. Exactly. She looked toward table 17. 13 chairs were waiting. 12 were ordinary. One was still reserved. This time, it was not waiting for an enemy. It was waiting for a guest. And that was the thing the Vaer Dominion had finally learned about humanity. Sometimes the strongest way to say, you cannot control us, is simply to make room for you at the table and let you decide what you want to become. So if an alien fleet arrived over your town tomorrow, what would you save first? The people, the traditions, or that one empty chair? Tell me in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.